Okay, so before we start this, I want to quickly get this out there. It is almost the end of the month, and I know I hadn't put out any videos yet, well, it's part of why I'm doing this, but I also had wanted to do a QA for quite some time. So, I was planning on doing it this weekend, but I think it's way too short notice for me to try to do it this weekend, plus I got something going on this Saturday, so, yeah. And Sunday's probably not going to work so well either. So, the 29th of this month, I would like to do a live QA, probably for an hour, maybe two, depending on how the question and answer thing goes. Those of you who are on Patreon, of course, you guys know, if you're at the right level, you can be part of the actual video conversation. I'll try to, if you guys are interested, let me know, send me a message or something so I can, make sure to send the invites when the day happens. It's most likely going to be over YouTube Hangout, Google Hangout, that crap. So, yeah, 29th, check real quick. Yeah, 29th, probably around 7-ish p.m. Central Time, most likely. I'll give you guys an update on that, but that's probably where I'm going to do it, either 7 or 8-ish, around that. So, whatever questions you guys got, or whatever, just make it a fun little hangout thing before I jump right back into Dark Souls 3, which is awesome, by the way. So, yeah, now that it's over with, let's get on with the video. Hey guys, what's up? So, weapons. Yeah, I kind of want to talk about weapons. I mean, it's nothing new on this channel. I've talked about weapons before, but we're not going to be talking about it the way you probably would expect me. See, many of you guys who've come on this channel came through because of, me knowing Skull, so you're probably going to be expecting me to talk about sword stuff, but many of you other guys who've been around a lot longer than that remember my channel was more about me just ranting or musing on things, and that's what this video is going to be on. It's going to be more like that. Hopefully it'll be entertaining for all of you, and it'll at least give all of you something to think about, because this is something that's been on my mind for quite some time now, and I think it's time for me to kind of get it out there. Even though it's probably going to upset a few people. Well, hopefully it won't, because I don't think it's all that inflammatory, but it's one of those things that gets people to think about things in a way they probably don't want to. So, when I'm talking about weapons, I'm actually talking more about their context in human society. More to the point, I want to talk about weapons in a marker of how well a society is doing. And in terms of human society right now, like the type that I happen to live in, I don't think we're doing very well. Let me put it another way. George Carlin is one of my favorite comedians. Not just because he's funny and quirky, especially his like much older stuff, like from the 70s onward, like the 70s and 80s, the stuff was really quirky, and then as time rolled on, it got much more into the whole social commentary thing, which was always there, but not as heavy. But when he really started getting to the whole social commentary thing, particularly, it really started jumping in during the early 90s. Well, it started during the 80s after that whole fiasco with the 7 words you were not allowed to say. But then it just started pushing more and more into it. And one particular comedy routine of his that I remember fondly was, I believe the album itself was called Jamming in New York. I don't think that's what the HBO special called it, but for any of you guys who are interested, that's what you should look for. The actual CD, which I own, is called Jamming in New York. The HBO special, which I also saw, called it something else. I can't think of it right now. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But in that particular part, toward the latter end of the routine he was doing, he talked about how in every city he went to, when he did routines at the time, he would always ask how was the water. And he never got a positive answer, which is not too surprising in these days and times. It wasn't surprising even back then. Everyone would be saying the water sucks or the water's bad, don't drink the water, and you even hear in the crowd, don't drink the water. And he said that pleased him, that amused him. Because to him, that was a sign that society was just beginning to break down, just beginning to fall apart at the seams. And the reason for that was because people were no longer trusting the water. And if people were no longer trusting the water that they were getting in their own towns and cities, then that level of distrust was showing just that society was just beginning to break down. Now, some people may not be able to make that connection, and I can understand that. What does not trusting water have to do with society breaking down? But I got it right away, even as a young teen watching that. That hit me. Like, yeah, got a point. If you can't trust your own municipality, you seem not going to necessarily trust that it's going to function properly in other areas. It's not going to be able to keep its economy running for long. It's not going to be able to keep order for long. Its infrastructure sooner or later isn't going to be trusted. All that. You're beginning not to trust the very thing that you're depending on to live your very life. Because that's what human society is for. I've talked about this before. I've mentioned this before. But the reason why human beings form societies in the first place is because that's how we're able to survive. I know there's a whole lot of people out there who love, pumping up their chest about how individualistic they are. I'm my own man. I do things on my own. I don't need nobody. And it's a nice illusion to have, but that's not how humans work. And it's never been how we've been able to survive. Human beings, more or less, were able to survive as long as we have, which actually, when you look at the, actual age of the Earth and all the species on it, really haven't been on here for all that long. But still long for us. We've been doing okay so far because of two things: our ability to adapt and our ability, or our innate desire to group together. We are a social species. We are social animals. We're pack animals pretty much, and it's when we get together that we have a better chance of surviving. When the human beings on their own, they don't really have much going for them. I mean, let's face it. Out in the wild, we're not the strongest, we're not the fastest, we're not the most durable. I mean, we don't have really good sharp claws. We don't have, really sharp teeth to hunt with. We're definitely not going to be able to outrun predators. We're not that fast. It's hard for us to catch prey, depending on what type of prey they are, especially on our own, unless you happen to be really, really good. These days you need stuff like guns, and even then there's no guarantees. Yeah, when you're on your own, especially if you have only your own natural, your own natural defenses to depend on, you're not going to do very well. But when you group together with other people, that's when things happen. That's when you're like, well, by myself, I can't catch that thing, but a group of us can, this group can distract it and lead it over here where the rest of us are waiting. Stuff like that. Grouping together makes work easier, makes things go a little bit more efficiently. And not only that, but people coming together, since everybody has different perspectives on things, that helps us to be able to come up with new ideas. One person may have one piece of the puzzle, the other person has another piece. And that puzzle, of course, being the reality we live in and trying to solve what's around us, figure out what's around us, figure out problems, things like that. That's how our society's been able to get to where it's at today. And that's the other thing. No one society just came out of a vacuum and said, oh, we just did things on our own. Whenever there usually is some big leap, it's usually because they got some bit of information that they never thought of before that they got from somewhere else and built upon it. A cursory look at history or just simple human development shows this. So yeah, we come together as a society to help help us to survive in the world we live in, and to help push ourselves along, to advance ourselves as our species continues along. And our society is able to function well as long as we're able to trust in it. If we stop trusting that we're going to, that this is the group that we're in is going to be able to run efficiently to keep us safe, to get us the resources that we need to be able to survive, and of course those particular resources, when we're able to get it, keep us healthy and strong and safe so that we can continue to keep ourselves and the society itself going. It's cyclical. Perfectly circle of life. No, I'm not going to go into the song, but I think you guys get the point that I'm trying to make. You don't trust it, it starts to break down, and then things start to crumble and the society fails, and then the people within it start to go through even bigger hardships, and then they fail, which is a problem. So what does that have to do with weapons? I mean, What, am I saying that weapons are a market that society is breaking down? I mean, that would be freaking stupid. We've had weapons for quite some time. Weapons are just another tool that human beings made for a specific purpose. Just look up throughout, history. There's been plenty of stable societies where people had weapons. What the hell am I talking about? No, that's not what I'm talking about. I mean, come on. This is me here. You think I'm against weapons? Come on. No. No, what I'm touching on is this weird need lately. Well, not all that lately. It's been going on for years now, but it's really been ramping up over the past few years. This need for people in a supposedly stable society to always want weapons with them all the time. This is fascinating to me. I think if Carlin was still alive and he wanted to continue talking about how society is breaking down, which is something that he kept bringing up more often in his comedy routines before he died, pretty sure he'd start bringing that up. Because that's a big sign to me. Let me put it another way. Right now I'm playing Dark Souls 3. Love that game, by the way. It's awesome. And Dark Souls is a game that takes place in a world that's not very hospitable. Definitely not safe. I mean, it's hauntingly beautiful. You can tell as you go through that, through the ruins and the busted castles and the torn up towns and wherever you happen to be walking through in the game, that this place used to be really beautiful. Probably was a very high functioning place. You see these lofty towers, and you see these banners, and you see just these little clues that whatever group of people that were living there were living pretty well. And that kind of stopped along the way, and things aren't good anymore. They're not living well over there anymore. Far from it. Now it's a very, very dangerous, hostile place to be. There is no safety in Dark Souls. Anybody who plays the game will tell you that. Dark Souls 3 is no exception. So, in that world, with the monsters and the weird rabid skeleton dogs and the, crazed knights and, the huge dog-like warriors in armor and all the other weird shit that you're going to deal with, you're going to need weapons, okay? You going through that land, thinking that everything's going to be fine and dandy is not a good idea. If the world of Dark Souls was real, and I was walking through it, I wouldn't be walking through it just like this. No, you best believe I'm going to have armor. I'm going to be strapped with whatever I possibly can. That's assuming, of course, I'd want to walk through that place in the first place. I probably want to stay as far away from it as I possibly can. But if I had no choice and I had to go through it, yeah, I'm packing weapons. Makes sense, right? The place isn't safe. You need weapons. That's Dark Souls. That's Lothric. That's the land over there. It's a hostile area. Makes sense to bring weapons. Now, let's say you were in Candyland. You're just coming up with something off the top of my head. You're in this place, everything's all happy and swell, everything's working fine. Land is peaceful. Whatever government they happen to have there, whether it's a democracy or a monarchy, whatever you want to pretend it has, they are doing their job. Everything's, groovy. Nobody has any discontent. Everything's going great. People are happy. They're well fed and whatever. Wouldn't it make sense to bring weapons there? Do you honestly think in a place like that, you know what? Before I walk out the door, I better bring my freaking Glock just in case somebody goes nuts. Doesn't make sense in that type of scenario, does it? If the place is stable, if the society is functioning, there's no reason for you to bring out weapons. Why? But in the country I live in, which is supposed to be more or less stable, you have people willing to bring their freaking M16s at a Denny's, depending on what state you happen to live in. Why? Because you never know. Motherfuckers walking in with AK-47s at Starbucks. And what cracks me up even more is every now and then you'll see on Facebook or Twitter or whatever freaking place where people want to put up some memes and some weird ideological political BS that they happen to be brainwashing themselves with. They'll put up a picture of somebody with a freaking gun at their hip or strapped to their back or holding it proudly or whatever, going, Wouldn't you feel safe if somebody like this was near your kids? And of course, you'll get the usual answers. Of course I would. Or, hell no, I wouldn't. And meanwhile, I'm thinking to myself, well, it's not that I wouldn't feel safe being around that individual. I just wouldn't feel safe being in that area. Because if you live in a place where you feel the need to have a weapon strapped to your side just for walking outside your door to get yourself a cup of coffee, that tells me that where you live must be a really crazy fucking place to live. It couldn't possibly be stable. I mean, that's the message you give. If you walk, just think for a moment. This is not some liberal crazy message. This is not some political. This is common sense here that I want some people just put down your political signs for a second and just think. If you're a stranger walking to a land and you notice most of the people there carrying freaking heavy weapons, heavy ordnance, even if it's just a pistol, that's not necessarily heavy ordnance. Forget the heavy ordnance thing. Just at the very least, you walk around and see people constantly strapped with guns at their hips, and it's everybody. Wouldn't that tell you? I don't think this place is safe. That leads me to how I feel about how society's going. There are places now where they feel that's a necessity. And this is the other thing that really cracks me up, the bravado that you sometimes hear from people who have weapons like this. You know, like they'll hear something on the news, like for instance, you know, recently you hear about people who just went off on shooting sprees for crazy reasons, or worse, maybe they were influenced by radical propaganda. And many times you'll hear somebody who has weapons going, shoot, this is why you gotta carry weapons. If I was there, if somebody had a gun, that wouldn't have happened. Bullshit. Here, as a martial artist, I need to take that illusion away from you. The only way it would have went differently is if anybody who had a weapon there is also aware of the situation. There's a reason why ambushes work. There's a reason why surprise tactics work. Because if you get the jump on somebody with a weapon, it doesn't matter what weapons they got, they're fucked. 9 times out of 10. You have to be ready and constantly expecting that something's going to go wrong in order for this to work. If, let's say, some crazed person who decides that he's going to be bringing retribution to some public place for some idiotic reason, decides to put on a freaking ski mask and then pulls out a gun or whatever and goes off on this radical tirade, and let's say he just happens to pick out some Denny's. Let's say in that Denny's, there's somebody there with a gun. That person with the gun has to be well-trained, well-conditioned, and mentally prepared to jump off at any time. And they also have to be aware of any visual and audio cues that something is about to go wrong. They have to be like, okay, wait, something. Who is that guy over here? The way he's walking, oh shit. That you have to have that level of awareness, and almost a sixth sense. Military guys, I know a few, they got that sense when something's going wrong because they have that drilled in them. That's what the boot camp is for, to get them like prepared, to have those heightened senses to know, oh shit. These are the people who, especially the specialists, the guys who really know what they're doing. These are the people who don't even need a gun. If they got at least a butter knife, they're ready. They're looking around. They're the ones who survey the room. Every time they walk into any room, they're like, okay, I could use that, I could use that, I could use that. What is that guy doing standing over there? Like they are analyzing the situation. They're analyzing the room. I'm sorry this is taking so long, guys. Get to the point. But they're ready. Most of the people out there who just have guns on them or whatever, they are not prepared for something like this. Just because you happen to go to the shooting range every other weekend doesn't mean that you are prepared to use the gun in a high combat situation. And you most certainly are probably not ready if something's going to happen. Most people aren't. And you want to know why most people aren't? Because they're not living in a war-torn, crazy battlefield area. That's why. They live in a society where more or less, things are orderly. So there's no need for them to be conditioned for, oh shit. I mean, if they want to, that's fine. There's training courses out there for people who want to be that mentally prepared. A good martial arts training program is one way, though that's mostly hand-to-hand melee. Military training is another way. A lot of military guys and vets who are, to the point where it's a fault sometimes. This is where the PTSD and all that other stuff comes in because they're a little too over-conditioned. The point I'm trying to make is the average civilian is not prepared for that sort of thing. The reason why is because they're living in a society where it's not needed. It's generally stable. And yet, for some strange reason, more and more these days, if people feel the need, I need a gun. I need weapons. I can't go outside without something on me. I need something on this so people know I got weapons so they don't start nothing. You know, if you carry weapons and it's open, that's why you need open carry, so that if any criminal something starts something, they know better. They better not start it here. You need that mentality in a place that's freaking fucked up. When you're in a place where there's like things are totally breaking down, where your society is failing, that makes sense. When you have no trust in your society, that makes sense. But if you're living in a stable area, what the hell? But that's the thing. You're living in a stable area, and yet you still feel the need to have protection, even in your own home. When you got guns and stuff, and you're ready in case somebody enters my home in a peaceful neighborhood where no one got robbed. It means you're no longer trusting your society. Deep down inside, you feel I can't, and you hear it too. I can't trust the cops to come save me. I can't trust the people. There may not have been a burglary in your neighborhood for 50 years, and yet here you still are. They still come to my door. I got my axe, I got my sword, I got my gun, I got my shotgun, I got everything. That means you are not trusting your society. That's a major breakdown of trust, especially with so many people in so many states feeling that way. Now, some people will say it was only specific states, but it's spreading. Spreading in areas that you wouldn't expect. This feeling of shit. And this fear that something wrong could happen. And I find it a bit alarming, but also amusing. Because this is that continuation of society breaking down. If you feel that you cannot walk out that door without some deadly tool, and if you're not the only one, it's not just like crazed paranoia, it's just like, no shit, I need guns. And it's a bunch of you guys, and you're making a statement about it, that's not a good sign for how well the society is doing. And it's not the only marker I've been seeing, but that's one particular one that I've noticed that it's kind of amusing to me. No, I don't really have a specific point on, whether it's bad. This is not a leftist or rightist statement, a right-wing statement, anything like that. No, this is just an observation that I'm making, that I think some people seriously need to think about. Especially if you happen to be one of those people who are really advocating for weaponry. Why are you doing so in a society that's supposed to be orderly and peaceful? Of course, there's going to be some arguments saying, well, it isn't. Maybe you're right. Or maybe you're wrong, or maybe it's something in the middle, but that's definitely something that you're going to have to take pause and think about. How well is society that would come to that point? And do you secretly hope that it continues to break down so you get a chance to use that weapon one of these days? And if so, what will it say about you? Again, something to think about. Catch you guys later.